Hi, folks. Let's wait a few minutes to see if people join. Let's give it a couple of minutes more. All right. Hmm. 13 people on the call. So I think we can start. Welcome to this week's Attestation SIG meeting. The agenda had Mark as the main presenter for continuing talking about identity and workloads and whimsy and related stuff. But I talked to him yesterday and he said he was away for work all the week, so he couldn't join. And so his stuff is rescheduled for in a couple of weeks, basically. So today on the agenda, we have 3 points that Usama has put there. Usama, do you have any preference on the order in which these things should be discussed?
Yeah, hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Yes, I do not have a specific preference, but I must say that I was not prepared to lead the discussion for the whole meeting. So it might be more of maybe half an hour or so. So yeah, so we can. I had 3 topics. One was the how to have the SIG meeting. Meetup basically that we want to plan before the FOSDEM. And the second one is the specifications of attested TLS and kind of a summary of what we had discussed in the IETF and for the people who were not joining. And the third one kind of recall the discussion on freshness and have some kind of a discussion over that in a limited scope. I know it's a very wide scope, probably it deserves a paper in itself, but yeah, with some limited scope, we can probably reach on some agreement at least.
Right. So we need some kind of structure there. Do you want to go? Would you want to go through some sort of bullet points, or do you have an issue that you want to discuss specifically? What kind of format do you want to give to the conversation?
Yeah, okay. So I can probably start by sharing the screen for the formats for, and I would like to know basically who is going to join us, and probably let me share the screen. Probably that will be the best way.
So we're talking FOSDEM, right?
Yeah, so first about FOSDEM. Maybe I can so I hope everybody on the list actually knows. I drop also an email that we have this attestation dev room, which is the new dev room we have, and we have a link to that call for papers or call for basically proposals for talks. So we have 10, 20, and 30-minute slots, and please do specify that whatever is suitable for your talk, all the desirable topics. I think everything we discuss in the SIG is within scope. And the deadline is 1st December. I think it is out of control of our hands, so please try to submit within this deadline. So we as organizers can't really control this stuff, so please do it within time. And this is, I think, pretty much clear, I hope, to everyone. But the thing which is kind of needs some discussion is this. We had a discussion about the meetup just before the FOSDEM starts, that is on the 31st of January. And I have a list of some formats here, and I would like to ask the SIG, like, what do you prefer? What kind of format should we follow? I would still like to keep somewhat of this thing because the organizers, they are offering us the room, and they
Right.
said that one of them has like they have one PhD student who is working on topics on attestation, so he would give some kind of a lightning talk. So, and this might also be an opportunity for some of you who are joining to discuss your topics.
Right. Just to understand how many people on the
Mhm.
would be willing to join either in person, or do you think we have remote participation as an option there?
Yes, we can make. I think that they would have some facility in the room. I will check that. That
Mhm.
should be possible to have it remotely.
But just to have an idea of the numbers or potential numbers, to anyone in the school plans to come to Brussels for the FOSDEM and come one day earlier to join this attestation SIG in person meeting. I see Jonas, myself, of course, Usama.
Yeah.
Okay, so not a lot. Fritz, no, don't know yet.
I'm here now, right? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know yet, unfortunately, if I will be there the full Friday. So that's a problem on my end. I don't know yet if I will be there for the
Mhm.
session, yeah.
Right. We're talking about afternoon here, right?
Yeah. So yeah, just to clarify, this will be starting at 1 p.m. roughly, I think, and up to 5 p.m., something like that.
Ah, I see. So it's already afternoon. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that makes it a little bit easier. But okay, so I'm not sure yet if I will arrive in the evening or noon. Okay.
Mhm.
No, but that makes it better. Okay. But yeah, let's see.
Okay. Okay, it's 3-4 people. So Usama, probably we need to make sure that whether we have remote participation tooling in the room so that we
Right.
extend, the participation.
Mhm. Okay. So then I think we can open also to, we have enough capacity. The room is about 30 people, which means that we can now open it to not only the hosts and also to other public who might be interested in the topic and joining. So, and remote for, say, participation. Okay.
So
then
if you want to announce it very broadly, what you can do is there is something called FOSDEM Fringe events. They also show up on the FOSDEM website and are just loosely a group of things that also happen around FOSDEM. So,
okay, cool.
Let's say very broad announcement of this. I have no experience with this, so I don't know if either no additional people would come or a lot of additional people would come or what the measure is in between. But I just wanted to let you know those exist. So it's called Fringe events.
Okay, that would be cool. So if you can put the link in the chat or in the notes, that would be great. Then we will follow up on this and we can advertise also on other channels, like other people can then participate if there is not a lot of participants expected. We have 30 seats roughly. So there might be 5 from the university. And if we are 5-6 people, we can have other people joining us in person. Cool. Okay, I think we are done on this, except that the formats, is there any preference for, I think in my opinion, hackathon type will be very hard. If we have a broad audience, like which specific topic we will work on would be very hard. Probably we need to choose among the 3 if people have any strong opinions on what kind of format would be suitable or what do people want.
Yeah, roundtable discussion seems interesting. Also because the dev room is packed. Basically, there's one presentation after the other. The amount of discussion that you can have is limited. So if we can make the face-to-face useful for deeper conversations, then might be my preference.
Okay. Any other opinions? Okay, if not, then we choose among or we have kind of a mixture of lightning talks and roundtable discussions. We select some topics and then we proceed with that. Okay, then I will follow up with the people who are interested and then we will sort out the details. I think that's it for the first point. I need to see the slides for. Okay.
So ATF report, if who was there, I was there.
Yeah, you want to start about it, Thomas?
Ned was there. You well, I only participated in the RAT session and nothing more basically. So what can I say? Interesting bits. The CMW conversation progressed. We are slowly converging on some agreement within the group. The UCCS and Eat Media Types saga is finally over. This morning, the 2 documents have been released from the ISG processing queue and are now in the RFC editor queue, which is good news, I think. Other than that, some interesting side discussion on more complex attested topologies with Huawei that may tie with the discussion on the composite attester that we have and the workload identity that we have, but that is to be seen. We need to engage with the guys who are in Paris, if I remember correctly, and then maybe try and pull them in the SIG discussion in one of the next meetings. We'll make sure to, that we try this with them, try and engage with them. That's probably it from my side. Apart from the attested TLS, maybe Usama is better pleased to provide a some kind of summary of what happened there.
Yeah, so from my perspective, we had that presented firstly in the Formal Methods research group. So there are some working groups. There are alongside IRTF research groups where academics and researchers together along with the practitioners join. So I presented the specification part there, and that was alongside the site meetings, 2 site meetings where we had tutorials on tested TLS. And then in RATS, we presented some of the specifications of using RATS alongside any protocol. Like other than TLS, there is also ad hoc protocol, which the editor requested me for formal verification. So I think we need to, in my mind, we need to think of remote attestation as a sub-protocol, which we can then compose with TLS, with ad hoc, with other protocols. And that's where we are trying to move to see the fundamental properties that the remote attestation should provide. And then whatever other protocol is, whether it's ad hoc, TLS, or whatever that X, Y, Z is, so it will then compose together to preserve both properties of remote attestation and that specific protocol, and then the channel bindings on top. And during the hackathon, we had good discussions on channel binding. And Cedric also proposed 2 interesting properties that we haven't yet verified, but I think that's a very good start for trying to think about the channel binding in a more formal way. So yeah, I think it was very interesting. And then finally, in the TLS working group, Hannes presented the tested TLS draft, and we asked for adoption. There were a couple of questions, one from Eric on channel binding, and the other by Mike. I think that was related to some certificate authority or something like that.
No, it was in the context of VPN.
Web, yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thanks for correction. So he was more concerned about the web and VPN and these things, and that's clearly out of scope for us. So yeah, I think we will then.
I'm not sure it's out of scope, right? So if you say web, yes, but VPNs based on say the DTLS, they are to me they're quite
yeah. Right.
So that was an interesting use case that we hadn't considered before, but which seems like something I can address easily with the toolbox.
Okay. Yeah. So then we are asking the TLS working group for adoption, and I think there will be call for adoption in the next few days or weeks, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's.
So yes, just to clarify a bit on the dates, the chairs came back and said to do that after Thanksgiving. So I don't know exactly when that is, but that should be between beginning of December and Christmas time. So at that point, if you can join the TLS discussion, and maybe if you're interested, wave your flag.
Thanksgiving is November 28th.
28. Okay, thanks.
I also have it in my calendar. for that reason, I also don't know.
Awesome, thanks for it. So yeah, at that point in time, doing some kind of coming to the mailing list and showing interest would be much appreciated. Ned, do you want to add anything about ATF?
I mean, you sort of covered the topic around, distributed multiple verifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a few presentations highlighting use cases. And so I think there was sort of mixed feedback in terms of whether or not the RATS architecture, adequately addressed that concern, or if there's additional work that's needed.
Daniel,
What else?
can you mute yourself?
There's kind of some noise, background noise from somebody.
Thank you.
And let's see, you mentioned the TLS stuff in the TLS working group.
Yep.
Yep.
That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, thanks. So, is there any question about things?
Is there any activity going on with any evolution of EAT in general or COREM?
It is in the editor queue, so it's going to be an RFC soon.
Mm-hmm.
Evolutions of it in terms of what kind of evolutions? Because yes, we're discussing two things in terms of extending, for example, the data model to allow measurements for firmware. There's been an interesting discussion about what to do with EAT profiles, what kind of work is needed in the working group, and what kind of standardization path we want to have for EAT profiles, if any.
Oh, so discussion of standardization of EAT profiles versus just leaving it essentially to be defined as anything that the author wants.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That discussion has not converged yet, but there's if you want to chime in, that there's a thread on that that's pretty active, or it's been pretty active until a couple of days ago, 3 days ago.
Kind of related to that is there was discussion about the folks that are defining claims using in ASN1 for HSM vendor use primarily. There was a request a few meetings ago for them to essentially implement everything that's in the EAT drafts. In other words, have a dir encoding for EAT. There's been some pushback around, hey, do we need all of this stuff in EAT for the the target customer use case, whatever, and essentially, kind of at the end of the day, what you will end up with is a dir web token. And is that something that the industry wants? So I think that question was raised, and I don't know that it's been addressed yet.
Thanks. And on COREM, any activity there?
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
There was a status update for COREM. I think Yogesh get the status update. And quick summary is making progress, moving forward, and addressing issues, but there's still lots of outstanding issues.
Beyond Verizon, are there working examples out there of COREM?
Are there people implementing it? Is that what you mean? When you say out there, what does that mean? What is out there?
I think I'm asking one step further. Are there any working solutions out there, be they closed source or open source, that implement COREM, for example, like I believe I've seen in the Verizon code base?
You mean for generation or for like as itself having a COREM?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question.
Do you mean for like Verizon does for like showing and depicting and generating, etc.? and verifying, or do you mean if there are quorums published for products?
Both, both. I'm sniffing, you know, as someone who works on a remote attestation service for Microsoft, I'm just kind of sniffing around to see, if there's a wave coming or not, or when I can anticipate the wave. So that's all. I'm slightly abusing the audience here, since everyone, I think this is the best source of knowledge for that kind of information. So
yeah, so I can say, at least for NVIDIA, we have our network cards, our NICs Connect X7 is publishing quorums together with the binary release for, I don't know how many versions now, but it's, I think it's here. So now when you download the binary, you also download the quorum. And that will change. We have like a service, like a RIM service that we provide for GPUs.
Yeah, that's XML right now. I was just looking at this morning.
On
the RIM bundles,
so
right?
so yeah, so that's this TCG RIM, but so the Connect X core-RIM will I mean, so the plan is for all products to be on the RIM service. So Connect X is already a core RIM.
Okay, got it.
Intel has has a project to issue RIMs. So
Co-RIMs or RIM? Because I'm learning. This is all new to me.
Co-RIMs, yeah,
Okay.
co-RIMs.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Is that project open source or is it an internal project?
It's internal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just wondering on my side, kind of how quickly I need to both be ready for co-RIMs to start appearing and to be pushing some of the design discussions going on to kind of like, to actually take the bet on co-RIM and start, expressing some endorsement stuff based on co-RIM. So, thank you.
Good to hear that, Greg. And if you want to join well, that might be a bit of overkill, but there's a weekly meeting for the core design team.
I'll keep that in mind. Thanks, Thomas. I think at this point that's a little above my, or it's
just saying that the such thing exists, and if you want to join in, and if you have specific requirements that we need to factor in earlier, then maybe just chime in and tell us.
At this point, I don't. Thank you, Thomas. I'll keep that in mind.
All right. If this thread is over, Usama, do you want to take it back and go
sure.
for the item?
Yeah, just a moment. Okay. Okay. I hope you see the screen now. So this is attested TLS. We have discussed in a few meetings, so I will just quickly go through the stuff again and then go to the specifications that we have added during the IETF week. And the change is already on the first slide. We added NED accepted our proposal to be a co-author in this work. And we have added also channel bindings and other stuff that I will just quickly recall for people who might have forgotten. Pre-intra post, we have seen many times, and how we formally define is it at what point in time the signing happens respective to the TLS handshake. If it's before, it's pre. If it's in between, it's intra, and if it's afterwards, if it's post. And then to set the stage for the table of comparisons that we have, it's just a quick reminder on pre-handshake attestation, considering the client as an attester. Of course, the server can also be the attester, but just as an example, the attester will generate evidence already before TLS handshake starts, which is at this point in time with the client hello, transmit it within the certificate, so there is no extra latency, and appraisal happens at the end of the TLS handshake. The second option, intra, what the TLS internet draft proposes is generation also happens within the TLS handshake. And so there is more latency compared to the previous one for within the TLS handshake. Certificate is transmitted, the evidence is transmitted within the certificate message. And then as usual, the appraisal happens. And the third option is the post handshake, which is that the generation happens after the TLS handshake has completed. And then there is an extra message which is required to transmit it. And if nonce is also required, there will be a round trip of whole of this thing to go from server to the client and then generate the evidence based on that nonce or including that nonce, and then transmit it back to the server, and then the appraisal happens. This we have also discussed a bit, a detailed version, which it is also referencing the RFCs which are involved in the post handshake. There are these are basically part of RFC 8446 TLS 1.3 exporters and post handshake exchange messages. And RFC 9261 basically defines the exported authenticators, for which there will be a new internet draft that will define how attestation works post handshake. Hannes, I, and Thomas are kind of thinking over this. And the left side we have pretty much discussed in detail. This is attested CSR draft by Mike and Hannes and others. And it can also be Verizon already discussed, like trust authority issued credentials. And then this is the older one in the intra handshake TLS CWT, which does not allow negotiation of the formats. And the TLS attest does allow this negotiation. I think this pretty much covers the scope already. If someone has some design option in mind which is not covered here, feel free to let us know, because of course there are other implementations. We do not mean it to be exhaustive, but up to the second level, which is where my mouse is floating. So this point we claim that we cover all the options that exist today in research or in practice, both. Of course, then different implementations can be there. It's just one example of Intel's RATLS, Verizon, or Veracruz in ARCs. There are many others which are using these or modifying these. Okay. If not, then we have the specifications in key exchange part. Now TLS has two parts, broadly speaking. The first one, client hello and server hello messages, which are doing the key exchange. And this is the specification for what happens when attestation is added to that. So now we have three solutions, RATLS from pre-handshake, TLS attest from intra, and SCOAN from post-handshake solution. And what we are comparing here is, it's not really a comparison, it's a specification of what do these solutions do for each of these options. And the goal here is to add more options if there are any for the security analysis, or which are relevant to the security analysis. So the first one is defining what is there any extension to the client hello or server hello which is related to attestation in specific. And TLS attest does have these attestation extensions, which are actually carrying the next part, which is the attestation nonce, as part of that, as an extension to these messages. And the others are not, because that's pre, so it's already generated. It doesn't need this extension, and it's post, it's done after the handshake, so there is no extension. And C is basically defining whether it negotiates the format, whether it's going to require Intel TTX evidence format, or SGX, or CCA, or whatever, or CMW, for instance. So TLS attest does allow these formats to be negotiated between the client and the server via these extensions. And then finally, it's saying whether it uses the early exporters of TLS as defined in the TLS RFC. And I would like to ask if there is any other design option or extension which I might have missed here. Okay, seems not. Let's move to the second part of TLS, which is the authentication part. And here again, all the three options. Again, just as a representative, it's not meant to be exhaustive. It's just picking up one solution and actually the same solution that we had in the previous table, just to show that these specifications are not very hard to write. We can just fill up this table for whatever solution you have just by defining these parameters, that whether the key which is used for TLS, that is the TLS identity key, whether it's short-term or long-term, and that would be defined by the certificate that is issued for this specific key, unless that's a raw public key. And in RATLS, according to the specifications, it should be a short-term key at least. Implementations do have decades of lifetime by default, but that's a different story. And in TLS attest, it's supporting both short and long-term. And for SCOAN, it's a short-term key. And then the B part is basically defining the certificate message of the TLS. And here there is a bit of an ambiguity sometimes. There are two things now the certificate can refer to. One is the X509 certificate that is generated. And the second one, unfortunately, the message is also called certificate. So in this case, I'm referring to the certificate message of TLS. And it's defining what is the information contained within that TLS message as the message which is part of that authentication. So in both cases, it's carrying evidence. And for SCOAN, it's carrying public key because there is no evidence yet. It will be generated after the handshake has finished. And then it's representing who is signing that specific certificate. So it's still related to they are all related to the same thing, which is the certificate message. And in both of those pre and post, it's self-signed. And in TLS attest, it can be both self-signed or CA-signed. And finally, the format in which this certificate is formed, whether it's X509 or whether it's negotiated among the parties. And that happens basically in part of this key exchange, where in the extensions, they can agree upon different formats. Okay. Then extensions. So this is, keep in mind, only for the authentication part, which means they can be different from these extensions, which were for the key exchange part. So it's only defining for the authentication part, whether there are any extensions to those messages or not. And then TLS by itself, or the RFC, let's say 8446 defines exporters, one for early exporters, which are part of the key exchange. And then these are the normal exporters, which this field is saying that whether they have, whether they use it or not. And SCOAN is actually using this to export key material from the TLS handshake to the evidence. And that's why it's a tick here. And finally, one can also define new exporters. There is a mechanism for that. And this row is showing whether one of those solutions actually define a new exporter or not. So TLS attest is basically defining a new exporter. So this is our current study of what one might like to see within the specifications. Of course, it's not yet formal. We are working towards that, but it's already a good start that someone not familiar with formal methods can also just develop this table. And I think I was having a discussion with Thomas, and in 10 minutes, he was able to fill up this table. So it's not, doesn't require any, let's say, super formal things to fill up the tables. And in the UFMRG, we are trying to basically make formal methods more usable. And the idea was like there as well, that we can, people who are writing specifications that can just easily fill up these tables. Hey, what's the lifetime of the key? What's the information in there? Who is signing that? What's the format? Is there any extension? Is it using exporter? Is it defining new exporter? And that's it. So can be super easy for anyone and can be a good starting point for someone who is trying to do the formal methods analysis on top of that. So is already can be converted to a formal specification. Okay, so I will stop here for a moment to see if there are any questions or if there are any opinions already before jumping to the final slide. Okay, seems not. Okay, then final thing is the trade-offs for the typical comparison. This is not meant to be exhaustive. We are still working on it. Our current analysis kind of, you can view it like that, which is saying that now we have the pre, intra, and post. Having seen 3 different examples of that, what are the different kind of properties that we can analyze or we can think about for comparison of those for someone who is trying to choose which is the best thing for me to use in my design or in my implementation. So first, we need attestation. We need to modify something somewhere because it's not out of the box. And the thing is, we can either modify in the pre-handshake, we can modify the trust authority or the certification authority so that it takes an evidence, it checks that, and then issues the certificate based on that with some bits showing some attestation results. So something needs to be changed there. The intra handshake changes the TLS protocol itself. It makes all the changes there. And the post handshake is making changes to the application. Right. And then there is this replay protection. And here I will come back to this because this is a longer discussion and then we can go into it. I will cover the rest of the table first. So this is meant to be more of, these two are meant to be more of security properties. And the final ones are more of performance properties or latency related. Channel binding is saying, how is it, how are the two, as I said, the view is, I have the remote attestation protocol, I have the TLS protocol. How are the two bundled together? How are the two bound together? And pre-handshake attestation is basically generating an evidence before and using that or exporting that to attestation credential into the TLS. So it's unidirectional from the remote attestation into the TLS. Post-handshake, on the other hand, it's using TLS as it is, using the exporters from TLS to the remote attestation evidence. And that's why it's also unidirectional. And the thing in the intra is that it's using both, that is, it's using the TLS exporters as well as the attestation credentials, and it's kind of strongly binding the two together. For performance, we have now divided into 3 different categories, and final one is effective, which is we needed to make some change here before the handshake started. So there is some pre-handshake latency that is representing what was the time for the generation of that evidence, and compared to others which do not have any. So this is high. The handshake latency defined from the start of client hello up to the end of the client finished. This is representing that specific part. With THS, the handshake latency without attestation at all, without any payload, without any evidence. And TA for appraisal, that it needs to do, basically going back to this slide, so it needs to do appraisal still within that handshake. So that's why it has this handshake latency. and intra is doing everything within, so it has high comparatively, and post is not doing anything, so everything is afterwards, so it's just the normal TLS handshake latency. Right, the post handshake latency, basically, as the name says, now it's saying that the TLS handshake has ended. What are the steps still needed to do that? And it's important to kind of cover that because everything in post handshake is happening afterwards. It's not only the generation appraisal, but also the round trip which is required. And it can be a full round trip if the nonce travels from the server to the client and then the evidence from the client to the server. So it's at least this much. So effective basically represents how much overall, comparing all of these, is the overall latency of connection establishment. And effective is also taking care of that, not only the TLS handshake connection, but also the effectively when I can send my actual data, because this will not really be reflecting if we have up to this point. Of course, post has the minimal one, but that's not really the point where I can actually start sending my confidential data. So these steps still need to be taken care of in the effective part. And that's why with this extra latency of a round trip, that's high compared to others which are ready to do, ready to send over the secret or confidential data. So what we are working on, as I said in the IETF, Cedric proposed the channel binding properties, and we will be adding that as well. And the two other parameters which we have are usability or ease of use, and the complexity of the implementation or the formal verification. Of course, like this is using the standard one for pre and post, the verification effort will be small, and here it will be large because the two are intermingled together and there is more chance of a risk of a error. So these are the ones that we have already in mind, and I would like to know if someone has any opinion on what other properties might be interesting or might be relevant in this context. Okay, so people are very quiet today. Okay, if there is, Thomas, is there something in the chat?
Yes, but it's on Corim, so not on a TLS topic.
Okay. Okay, then let's open the thing for the replay protection. So as I said, we have a limited scope. Or when we have disagreements, basically I try to limit the scope to reach some agreement on some things, at least then we can, of course, investigate. It's a big topic in itself. So all this row is saying is that if I have a background check model, kind of a model, and which is something like this, a very simplistic thing, which is this is the tester, let's say, and this is the verifying relying party, not even background check, so even simplistic. So we have two-party model, client server and a tester, and this is acting as the verifying relying party. So is there a possibility of having a replay of that evidence or attestation credential that is passed to it? And having generated that pre-handshake, before the handshake, it can be replayed across. It's not tied to a specific session. And that's all this table is saying. It's saying that its replay protection is not available in this. And for the post handshake, it's also interesting because it's very tricky to use these exporters. They have three inputs. I think I don't have it in the slide, but they have the context label and key length. And if they are always the same, they will always result in the same exporter, and that will basically not prevent the replay of that. So yeah, Tiona, go ahead, please.
If you do not terminate active sessions when you update measurements, I'm not sure what the replay protection across sessions is really buying you if you are following good practice of short certificate lifetime and change management to make sure that any mutations are properly authorized.
Okay, so let me rephrase what I understood. So you are saying that the certificate lifetime is short and the mutations are not there for the lifetime of the certificate. Is this correct?
No. So if you do inter-handshake attestation, you can still, as soon as you start the session, have a mutation and have that session be open. If you're trying to catch any changes in measurements, then I would think that you need to shoot down any open sessions that depend on stale evidence. But that is not what is proposed in any of these designs.
Okay, so I think this goes back to some of the discussions that we had. So what we are trying to say now is that we are kind of distinguishing between the evidence freshness and the claims freshness. And this could mean that the attester does not necessarily need to recompute all the things or remeasure everything which is obtained after getting this nonce. It could be just checking.
I have a slightly different view on this.
Mhm.
So this is a TLS spec. It's a protocol spec. What's going on in the client device or the endpoint, I should say, not just necessarily client, when attestation evidence changes is possibly outside of the scope of the specification. So, I mean, it's conceivable that if an attester detects changing evidence and the handshake is complete, then the device in which the attester is located can actually terminate the TLS connection and restart it. But I think that's not, you know, what I've seen with these transport layers, with the TLS protocol spec and other similar specs like DTLS, they don't really give you a lot of guidance as to what the endpoint criteria is for termination due to events that are happening on the device. It just says it's possible to terminate. So, yeah.
Giri, there's also the possibility, you know, the in protocol possibility of going through a resumption, right? So you could renegotiate the session.
Yeah, and you can do it at application layer too, right? I mean, after the TLS handshake is completed.
Absolutely. So what I mean, to go back to what you were saying, which I agree fully, is that the application needs to create the signal to the stack in order for the stack to react and renegotiate or tear down and reestablish. You know, there are options there. Still is an application-driven process here.
Yeah.
So is it the case in TLS that the certificate message can be reasserted multiple times, like after the session is established?
You have resumptions, right? So, and you also have a way, if you know, that is asymmetric to do certificate request post handshake in TLS 1.3. So you could re-trigger client authentication.
So you just say, hey, I want to renegotiate the handshake, and then you can resupply the updated certificate message.
Yeah, but that's a bit asymmetric, as I said. So it's the server that can ask the client to
It's not bilateral.
Oh. You need to go through resumption there if you want to go the bilateral dance again. But there are options, but still, Giri's point is the application that instructs the stack, whatever the stack mechanics is involved in doing the actual job.
But in theory, exporters could be used in a way to exchange, notifications that say something about my endpoint state has changed. Do something about it.
Absolutely. You can build an application layer protocol that has all this kind of signaling. Once you basically bootstrap the secure channel using this, and then on top of this you build something else, which is the richer protocol that you're sort of thinking about, if I understand correctly.
I've yet to be convinced that the replay of evidence for a boot for something like an attested CFR is that big of a problem.
It's only a problem if something modified the stack. It's only a problem if there is a modification. If it's a traditional boot environment where the boot environment is transitory, then the change is not affected until you go through reset. So it's a pending change, but from the perspective of, is the current system that was at boot time was secure, is it still secure after boot? The answer is yes. So it's still fresh, even if there was a change applied to the system, but it didn't reboot yet.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We need to wrap up because we are 1 minute.
Yeah.
Thanks, Usama. Thanks everyone who joined the conversation and participated.
Thanks.
Usama, do you need to get some more time next time to conclude the conversation, or are you okay with this?
I think it's fine. So if there is some time left, maybe 10 minutes, we can just quickly update and finish this.
We'll see what Mark plans are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thanks very much again, everyone. We need to pick a chair for next time. Is there anyone around?
Yeah, I can volunteer. Thomas, this is Jim.
Thanks very much, Jim. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. See you in a couple of weeks. Cheers.
Thank you, folks.
See you in a couple of
Bye.
weeks. Take care.